I'd like to welcome you to the City of Eureka Springs Council meeting for Monday, December the 11th, 2017. I'd like to call the meeting to order now. Madam Clerk, would you establish a roll call to establish quorum?
Terry McClung.
I am here.
Christy Kendrick.
Here.
Bob Thomas.
Here.
Becky Schneider.
Here.
David Mitchell.
Here.
And Peg Adamson is absent with notice. We have 5.
Time for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Are there any admissions or deletions?
Second.
A second. Sorry, I need a second.
Turn the lights up.
Did I get a second? Did you? Oh.
Second.
Okay.
They said, wait a minute.
We have a poltergeist.
Sorry.
We're pausing for a moment here.
There we go.
Does our technician say we're still a go? Okay. At this point, we have a motion and a second for the agenda. Yes, Ms. Snyder.
Additions?
Yes, ma'am, additions.
Okay. I thought it was going to be on here, and I guess I misunderstood, a discussion of how the event went Saturday night.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I don't know if that would be new or
Are you going to mention about the workshop?
Let's do new.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd also, there's a request that Smitty is here to have a discussion regarding number 5 under new business, and would that be possible? I'd like to move it to number 1 under new business.
Okay.
That's okay, okay. I'd also like to add under new business to set the 2018 budget workshop, if that's acceptable.
Second.
Okay. And the city attorney has requested that number 1 under new business, ordinance to add planning recommendations to code, city attorney's opinion, and proposed B&B owner requirements be tabled until the next meeting.
Yes, please.
So new business 1 is postponed?
Yes, ma'am, if possible. Also under unfinished business 1, 2, and 3, I'd like to defer since Mayor Berry is not here at this point in time, and some of that is very dependent upon his input.
So if I'm understanding correctly, all unfinished business and new business 1 are postponed, yes?
And also, I was under the impression somebody mentioned me that item number 4 under new business, discussion of discontinuing showing the video on YouTube, might be being postponed.
Yes. I need that postponed until the first
number
meeting
4.
in January. Yes.
Thank you.
So under new business
Thank
number
you.
1 and number 4, and we added 2 things, set the 2018 budget and the event from Saturday night.
Thank you.
If that is acceptable, then can we get approval of the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes, motion to approve. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Vote, thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
All opposed?
And I'm going to count yours as a yes unless you say.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Speaking of that, since I'm a council person and doing the mayor pro tem and sitting here, would my vote a council vote or a mayoral vote?
It's a council vote.
Thank you, sir. I'm clear.
Okay.
Okay, then we've got that. Now we're on to the minutes, as I recall.
Yes, please.
Motion to approve.
Yeah, motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have some comments on that, please. After I reviewed the city clerk's draft of the minutes that she sent out last week, I sent the city clerk an email in which I said, "I'm sorry to see you revert to including what was discussed at the meeting in addition to what was done at the meeting. This is contrary to Robert's Rules of Order." She responded, "Thanks for your feedback. This method will be even more important when the meetings are no longer broadcast." In the City Council meeting of January 9th, 2017, a motion to use the abridged version of Robert's Rules of Order was unanimously passed. The abridged version of Robert's Rules of Order states, "The duty people most commonly think of in connection with the Secretary is drafting the minutes or official record of each meeting. Frequently, secretaries make unneeded work for themselves by putting far more into the minutes than is required or appropriate. The most frequent mistakes are trying to summarize the reports offered and arguments made in debate, and including all of the amendments and other secondary motions. In fact, in standard form, the minutes should generally include only what was done, not what was said. It is not the city clerk's place to decide for herself what belongs in the minutes. It is the city council's." And it did on January 9th, 2017. Before we discuss this issue, let me guess that the city clerk will want a word on this matter. I object in advance to the city clerk speaking. This is a council decision, not the city clerk's decision. The city clerk already interposes herself into city council deliberations inappropriately, since she is not a member of the council. An example that I can give is in the last meeting, where the city clerk challenged council member Mitchell's concerning his recollection of what happened in a past meeting. It is not the city clerk's right to participate in council deliberations. Therefore, I move that we postpone the motion to approve the minutes and that the city clerk revise the minutes in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order and resubmit them at the next meeting.
Have a comment?
I agree. Is there a second on that? Yes, yes.
A second on what? Did we not second on the...
The motion that she just made, I was waiting to see if there was a second to that motion, sir.
Would you repeat the motion, please?
My motion was to postpone the motion to approve the minutes and that the city clerk revise the minutes in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order and resubmit them in the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Motion failed on the second, and yet I'm going to go ahead and allow the clerk to speak.
Was there a second?
No, there wasn't. I said no, there wasn't a
thank
second.
you. I didn't
Point
understand.
of order, I object to the city clerk speaking.
I still want to speak.
Dave,
I object.
I can answer that.
Just one second here. A point of order. Does she have to have a vote on the point of order? I don't remember.
Yes.
Okay. There is a point of order on the table regarding allowing the city clerk to speak, as they were acknowledged by the pro tem mayor. So we need to vote on that. Is that a roll call or a voice vote?
Is there a second?
Be a roll call.
Oh, is there a second on the? Was there?
I didn't hear a second on the point of order. Was there one? I could have missed it.
No, I guess we're still in discussion.
We have the motion that she made failed with lack of a second, so we've got the motion on the floor to approve the minutes. Why can't we just go ahead and approve the minutes?
Well, then she came up with point of order. So I think that takes precedent, doesn't it?
That's an extraordinary motion. It would take precedence.
So the motion for so now we're dealing with the point of order is what I thought. And
Well, if there's no second, then we can go ahead and proceed and just
that's
vote
what
on the motion, right?
We were checking on the point of order to see if there was a second.
My point of order only is if you allow the city clerk to speak.
Is there a second on the point of order?
Are you going to allow the city clerk to speak?
I acknowledged that the city clerk could speak. Yes, I did.
Then I do have a point of order, because
Okay.
she is not a member of city council.
And then I'll second it, because I'm ready to go ahead and vote on the minutes.
Okay, so now we have a second to the point of order. So is that a roll call vote, sir?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas?
Could you clarify, we're voting what, on the point of minutes, to allow or not to allow?
You are voting on the point of order. And the point of order is that Ms. Kendrick doesn't want an elected, the city clerk official, the city clerk treasurer to speak.
Okay, then I would vote no.
No on the point of order.
Correct.
Ms. Kendrick?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
No.
Mr. McClung?
No.
Ms. Schneider?
Nope.
No.
So we guess go back to
Now we're back to the
original
motion.
motion, or
No.
may I say
Point of order.
I'd like to...
May we vote on that motion? Can we do that?
We're in discussion, and I did say that the clerk could speak. I did acknowledge her to speak, so it would seem like I should go back to that, if I would be correct.
No.
Yes.
I'll make it brief.
Yes, ma'am, you've been acknowledged to speak.
Thank you. You made the point for me, Ms. Kendrick. I am not a member of council. Therefore, the rules that were written as Robert's Rules of Order for an organization that has a secretary apply to that kind of organization where the secretary is a member of the body. And since we can't ride two horses at one time, and I am not a council member, it is not appropriate for council to tell me, an elected official who is not a member of council, how to do the job. And I have confirmed with the Municipal League attorney that the method for writing the minutes is not illegal, and it serves a definite purpose that has been explained, primarily that attorneys and judges use the minutes, and I'm glad you're listening to what I'm saying rather than writing your rebuttal, that that information is used at a later date to explain how a course of action was taken. It does have a purpose. It does serve a purpose, particularly when there is no video recording. That's the most important time. So since it is not council's place, I am not the secretary of your organization, it is not appropriate for you to dictate how the person who is elected to this 4-year position does her job. And it is unfortunate that when you sent your comment, I foolishly responded tongue-in-cheek, not realizing, not remembering that there would be no element of humor in play. I certainly will avoid that again. I won't do that again. So I would encourage you to just go ahead and stop trying to interfere with what I do, and I will do my best to not interfere with what you do.
And with that, Nikki.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, anyone can speak that the mayor recognizes, and when the mayor recognizes the city clerk for information of any kind, that happens to be perfectly legal. And as a lawyer, you should know that. In fact, all of us are getting real tired of the animosity between you two. Kindly keep it to yourself. Don't bring it forward. She's been doing her job for ages. She knows how to do it. She doesn't need you telling her how. And especially since the law is on our side in regards to when the mayor asks her to respond, she has the legal right.
I just have one quick statement, and that
Yes,
is
sir.
that Ms. Snyder not make decisions for me.
I'm not
you know.
talking to you, I was talking to
No,
her.
but you included me in your thought process, and I was a part of it, and I'm not.
No, I didn't. I wasn't referring to you at all, Terry.
Since we've had such a full disclosure discussion, I think the motion we go back to was
To approve the minutes.
to approve the minutes or not approve the minutes. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of
Yes.
November 27th? I did have one.
You do.
And I had a second?
We do.
Oh, it's time to vote.
Yes.
Oh, what a deal. Is that a voice vote or just
All
a...
in favor.
All in favor of approving the minutes of November 27th of 2017, please say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Oh, those opposed.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sir?
Com-
I'm sorry, I forgot to postpone number 3. I just realized that I didn't have next to it. Temporarily postpone.
New business 3?
Yes, I'm sorry. I totally overlooked that.
How do, since we've already closed the agenda, is that okay to do it that way? Do we have to do a separate motion on it, or how do we handle it?
You would do a separate motion, or you could do it when it comes up, like we do when we have an extra large meeting.
You want to do it when it comes up, please, ma'am?
Okay.
Postpone it then?
Sure.
Thank you. I think it's time for the Commission Committee Authority reports and expired terms. Planning, position 4 is vacated. CAPC has position 3 vacant. Hospital has position 4 vacant. Parks is fully staffed. HDC has position 3. And the cemetery is fully staffed. And I have no information that any of the commissions wanted to report anything at this meeting. So that moves us to public comments.
Good evening. Happy holidays. Joyous season to all. I first want to start by saying thank you to several of the council members last week for calling for great caution and scrutiny when dealing with this whole community center business that's going on. And I would ask you to please do your homework, due diligence, follow the power structure, the stacked board, where the money's coming from, because it's going to come back and bite you on the behind later. So please do your homework. Really look at, in black and white, what is structured and laid out versus what you're being told versus what they've put in writing on their website. None of it meshes. And it all goes back to the same people over and over and over again. And to quote Mr. Moyer, when you do the same thing over and over again, it does not promote growth. It yields attrition. The same thing goes for your leadership. When you have the same people in power over and over and over again, it does not promote growth. It yields attrition. So please, do your homework. Look at the structure, how many board members that are there are from previous board members, and they can carve out a room of that building for the chamber. But they can't carve out a piece of that room for city council if that building does become city property. The taxpayers paid for that property once already. And if there's a budget shortfall, you better be sure they're going to come after y'all to fill in that gap. That money comes from the taxpayers. We're not paying for it twice or a third time. So please, dot your I's, cross your T's, follow the structure, follow the money, and you will see exactly what is going on with this dirty, dirty deal. Thank you so much.
I am Joyce Knowles. I live at 2 Spur Lane here in Eureka Springs. At the end of the last council meeting, Terry McClung put on the agenda the possibility of discontinuing showing the video on YouTube because the cost of transcribing the closed caption is getting expensive. Alderman Kendrick seconded. The YouTube provides closed captioning free of charge, so it's possible the alderman meant editing the closed captioning. Back in March, Eric Knowles gave Kim Stryker information on how to close caption the meetings, and at the same time he gave her written information regarding transcription services to edit the captioning for clarity. The cost runs $1 per minute with a 12-hour turnaround. We never insisted that all city meetings be captioned and edited. In fact, I disputed Ms. Stryker's insistence that they all had to be edited, quoting Alderman Schneider's baby steps. For that matter, we never insisted that all other meetings move to the odd. That was done at Stryker's insistence as well, despite my protest. We only asked that the city council meetings move to the odd and that city council meetings be captioned and edited. I added up the minutes of all the city council meetings this year, but this one, of course, which totaled 2,531 minutes, and that would be $2,531 for the year to date, had they done it all year, which they haven't. That averages out over 25 meetings to $102 per meeting. By the way, you spent $16 messing around with this minute stuff before you got your minutes approved. While a city does not have to take any action which would result in a fundamental alteration of the nature of its programs or activity, or in undue financial and administrative burdens, such a determination can only be made by the head of the city or his or her designee and must be accompanied by a written statement of the reasons for reaching that conclusion. This determination must be based on all resources available for use in the program in question. Even if such a determination is made, the city must take any other action which would not result in such alterations or burdens, but would nevertheless ensure that individuals with disabilities receive the benefits and services of the program or service. Has this determination and written statement been made? Have they decided on the alternative? So Alderman McClung and Alderman Kendrick, how much is too much to provide access to city government for even one citizen? Are the disabled to be denied? It's amazing that it's ironic that you argue over Robert's Rules of Order, but you flout the federal law. I have two late husbands who served in our military willing to defend the right for us to access our city government. They didn't believe their service was too expensive, and I think we have room to compromise on the cost of all this captioning if we take it back to just a city council meeting, just here at the auditorium.
Hi, my name is Eric Knowles. I reside at 2 Spur Lane in this city. My comment tonight is about unrealistic expectations and unnecessary requirements concerning city meeting space. The Community Center Foundation Board has offered to rent meeting space to the city at the cost of $417 a month, or approximately $27 a meeting. Try to think of another 1,800 square foot space in Eureka Springs that you can rent for that price, and that price includes all utilities. At the last 2 city council meetings, 2 aldermen objected to this offer because the space was not going to be exclusively used by the city. Alderman Thomas and Mitchell implied that this was a deal breaker for them. When repeatedly asked, well, why do you need it? Exclusivity, that is. They didn't provide an answer. One sticking point seemed to be that setting up and taking down the sound system and storing it. But this is no change from what's been done in the past. The sound system is broken down, stored, reassembled at each meeting in the jury room and in this auditorium lobby. The Community Center offered an exclusive locked closet for sound and other equipment. The Community Center will schedule all meetings before any other uses, but the Community Center insisted that they be able to rent the room to other community meetings in order to have enough money to run the center and pay those utilities. No meeting space for the city has used in the past has been exclusive to the city council. No jury room, the courtroom, the auditorium lobby are all shared. At the community center, the city council will still be sharing with other city commissions and committees. Last week, we surveyed Berryville, Huntsville, Pea Ridge, Fayetteville, and Springdale, asking their city clerks where the city councils meet and who else used that space. They all reported that their city council meeting space was used or available for other committees, commissions, staff meetings, workshops, employee training, and public meetings. Exclusivity is not a requirement for them, and it should not be for us. Exclusive meeting space is not required to conduct city business. Exclusivity is an entirely new addition and unnecessary. It confers no advantage, has no purpose, and should not influence your decisions about where to move. Look at the space, and look at the financials. The community center has made an offer which is more economical and more immediate than the other alternatives. Thank you.
Is that the end of public comments? At this point, I'd like to encourage the public within Eureka Springs to take advantage of the public comments and come out here, both yay and nay, and express their opinions. That way they can participate in the process. Unfinished business items 1, 2, and 3 have been deferred until the mayor is back, since most of these rely on him for input. New business, we have moved number 5 up to number 1. So resolution adopting a substance abuse policy for the Eureka Springs transit system. I need a motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second, somebody?
Second.
Thank you. Smitty, would you like to give us an update, please, sir?
An update is on November 28th. My testing program was audited by the state of Arkansas, and we are in compliance with federal regulations on our drug and alcohol testing. But they presented a new policy. Federal government, in an attempt to curb the opioid epidemic, is testing drivers of public conveyance for opioids. So that change goes into effect January 1st. And so the new policy includes the testing for hydrocodone, oxymorphone, oxycodone, all those prescription drugs that need a prescription. If an employee is tested positive for the opioid and do not have a valid prescription, it's a positive test. And since transit is a no-tolerance agency, their employment will end. If they do have a valid prescription, I will get notification that that's a negative test, but with safety concerns. And if this is a driver, we'll have to sit down with the driver and the doctor, determine that if he can continue driving a trolley under his current condition.
So, did you say in your discussion that you have a current drug policy
We
in
do.
effect?
It's required by federal law for public transportation agencies who receive federal money.
So it's specific to your department as a requirement?
Specific to every public transportation department that receives federal money.
Question for the attorney. The current personnel policy manual for the city employees, and since the transit department has city employees, that is there a policy at this point? I don't remember one for drug usage or issues that apply to all city employees.
There is one that was prescribed 2 to 2.5 years ago, I believe, that covers those employees of the city that are required. Certain employees of the city are not required to be under a drug
any employee who uses a CDL is required to be in a drug program of some kind.
Okay.
If they drive a desk, they can pretty well get away with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we have something here on that, I believe?
I believe you do have a resolution that actually was provided to me by the state attorneys for that.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, Ms. Snyder.
Smitty, under the prohibited behavior stuff, it's got marijuana as number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea if that includes the legal marijuana
Yes, it does.
use? So if you have, for whatever condition, and you legally are using, you cannot.
As of this time, the federal government, marijuana is still a Schedule I restricted narcotic. That hasn't changed yet. So if a driver needs medical marijuana for something, his medical condition would probably negate him being able to drive for us. There's a reason he wants medical marijuana. Just that in itself means his health is not good enough where he can drive a vehicle. But marijuana, the Department of Transportation has stated that no matter what the state laws are concerning marijuana, it's still illegal for a public transportation driver to be test positive for it.
Okay, they do have an actual medication that's
it's in his system,
weird
it's-
marijuana thing, but it's a legal thing. I mean, this happened at Holly Island about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
One guy was smoking it legally, the other one was taking the medication. The only one who the island decided was legal was the one taking the medication. Is this permitted
No.
under this? So it's not...
They cannot be
the-
tested
the
for
fake stuff
the metabolite for marijuana at all,
Okay.
period.
So not even the fake synthetic
Now, there is
stuff.
discussion about when someone is under the influence of marijuana. Right now, it's any time. You know, we have to have up to 32 hours to drug test somebody if we suspect that they are under influence of something. There's discussion about when exactly is somebody under the influence of marijuana. And that's a discussion that's going to come down, and they have to figure out how to test for that. You know, they may test positive for marijuana, but they're not under the influence. Like I said, that's in discussion. That's probably 2 or 3 years down the line before they determine what to do for that. But as of right now, any marijuana positive test is a positive test, no matter how they get it. Even secondhand
Thank
smoke.
you.
Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we assign this resolution a number and read it for passage.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? I have a question of the attorney. Specific. This resolution is specific for the transit system. I would assume then that we need to, as a body, go back to the personnel policy for all employees for the city of Eureka Springs, and then take a look at that policy and dovetail it a little bit more and potentially bring it up to date?
Eventually, each of the departments where there are individuals who drive will probably want to do that. But right now, I think, as I understand it, only transit is asking for this to be done on their behalf.
Right,
I think that's because they just had their audit and
Had the
it's
audit.
been called to their attention.
This is mandated for federal funding.
No, I understand that, but what my question is, at some point, we need to have equity within the employees and across the system to be sure that it is legally applied as, not maybe legally, but it is applied in an equitable manner? No?
At this time, I think I would advise you to pass this without changes.
Correct. Oh, absolutely.
And then as the other departments have need, they can bring it forward. I think there'll be probably additional information coming down through some of the others shortly.
Okay.
One of the things that I do know is the Department of Transportation has been looking at the marijuana. And I know that was a hot topic this week on Capitol Hill for a short time. So I think there will be changes, but right now you probably need to just pass this one and get to the others.
As of this policy, the marijuana has not changed.
No, and I agree to that, but we have one personnel handbook for all city employees, correct?
I think we already have differences in the way the different departments look at it because there are different requirements.
But they fall under the personnel. Each department, even though it's separate, would have distinguished that this department is slightly different, but it still falls under the personnel handbook for the city employees.
If I'm not mistaken, do your employees not sign this particular?
Yep. And there, in the city handbook, it does make reference to the CFR 49 that we are under jurisdiction of.
Correct. No, I understand that. I just want to be sure if we have one personnel handbook and it distinguishes different departments have slight variations, it still falls under the master employee personnel handbook for all the city employees. That's all. And I understand we're doing this separate right now, and I understand why we're doing it. I guess what I'm saying is that we will have to go back and look at that at a certain point here in 2018.
When the other departments are notified, I think they will bring that forward to you most likely, yes.
Okay.
Particularly, I think that the police and fire will have other requirements in theirs because of the use of firearms or
Yes.
explosive equipment that the firemen may have ability to use.
Okay. We're still under discussion. Did I see somebody else? No. We have a motion and a second. Is this a resolution? It's a
roll call.
It's a roll call. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Kendrick?
Yes.
5-0. The resolution number will be 721. A resolution adopting the substance abuse policy for the Eureka Springs transit system. Whereas the City Council of Eureka Springs and the Eureka Springs Transit System are dedicated to providing safe and dependable passenger transportation services, and whereas it is our policy to assure that employees are not impaired in their ability to perform assigned duties in a safe, productive, and healthy manner, and that our workplace environment is free of the adverse effects of drug abuse and alcohol misuse, and whereas it is also our policy that the unlawful manufacture, distribution, dispensing, possession, or use of any controlled substance is prohibited, and that we encourage our employees to seek professional assistance anytime personal problems, including alcohol or drug dependency, adversely affects their ability to perform their assigned duties. And whereas the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Transit Administration, has mandated a compliant drug and alcohol testing program regulated under 49 Code of Federal Regulations, CFR Part 655 as amended, and 49 CFR Part 40 as amended, for safety-sensitive employees of public transportation agencies as a condition of federal funding. And whereas the attached drug and alcohol testing program policy meets the requirements of the FTA regulations. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Eureka Springs adopts the attached testing program policy revised on November 28, 2017 in compliance with FTA regulations.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Mandy.
Pardon me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're out of here, huh? Under new business, item number 2 is ordinance clarifying quorum of the whole for all commissions. It was Ms. Snyder and Mr. Mitchell. I have a motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Snyder, I believe you're lead off on this.
We have an ordinance. Let's read it.
What?
No, I make a motion that we accept the ordinance and give it a number and read it for passage.
Second?
For the first reading?
For the first reading. Sorry.
We do. There it is. I found it. We have a motion and a second.
Right.
Is there any
Voice is
discussion on
okay.
this? No.
Voice is okay.
Sorry. Is it? No, I'm to discussion, right? Yeah.
Discussion.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to point out that the title of this on the agenda is misleading, and that had caused me some problems at past meetings.
Okay.
The vote to pass or not to pass a motion has nothing to do with the quorum.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the problem.
Where is the word quorum used?
On the agenda
Oh,
topic.
on the agenda.
Right. Mhm.
Oh.
Well, but we're voting on the ordinance.
That's correct. I was just pointing out that the title on the agenda was misleading.
Was
The
it
topic on...
Was it something different than what you expected it to be?
No, I was pointing out to the council that the topic on the agenda was not what we're discussing on this motion here, or ordinance, proposed ordinance.
I'm going to acknowledge the city clerk because she has a response. Yes, ma'am.
I actually put what a council member says he wants or she wants as a topic for discussion, but the reason it came up is because a commission chair was understanding majority of those present rather than majority of the whole body. And I think that's why you're seeing this particular phrase, because he wanted, the request was to clarify that majority of the body in order to vote, pass a vote.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
As I understand what they did was, it didn't matter the number in the quorum. They set their majority vote as being a majority of members present rather than as a majority of membership.
Right.
We're trying to straighten out their voting process,
Yes.
which has nothing to do with a quorum.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure that now that if you understand what you're voting on, that
That's
makes
correct.
a lot of difference.
Right.
But I can understand what you're saying.
Right.
Terry, I don't know who had his hand up. Mr. McClung, sir.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we discussed at the last meeting, and this is brought up like it is because this is what we decided to do. Irregardless of how it's referred to in the agenda, this was, the intent was to provide this ordinance to us because we did the discussion on this last meeting.
Okay, sir.
So that's why the ordinance is presented to us.
Ms. Snyder.
As I recall.
Yeah, I was just going to
Yes, sir.
clarify. I used the word quorum instead of the word majority. I used a quorum of the whole rather than a majority of the whole. So that's why this says quorum
Right.
and this says majority, because this is the legally proper. Mine was the normal way of saying.
Oh, I'm totally in favor of this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
I
this
just
is
didn't
what
want.
we were aiming
Yeah,
for.
Okay, that's right.
Well, based on that, are we ready to vote?
We are.
Is this a roll call vote? Voice vote. All in favor of an ordinance clarifying majority vote as to all commission, boards, and other sub-entities of the city of Eureka Springs, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed?
All in favor of this ordinance? We haven't assigned it a
The
number
first
and read
reading.
it yet.
The motion was already,
It's just for the first reading.
And the motion was made.
I believe the motion was made that this be read.
Assigned it a number and read
or
it.
assigned a number and read.
And what did I say? I still
We
pass
just need
it?
a voice
Okay.
vote on the motion.
All in favor of a voice vote on the motion as presented,
All in
please
favor of the
signify.
first reading.
All in favor of the first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Madam Clerk.
Number 2263, an ordinance clarifying majority vote as to all commissions, boards, and other sub-entities of the City of Eureka Springs. Whereas the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, has made a review of the laws and regulations regarding votes taken by various governing bodies created under its authority, and whereas the council believes it to be in the best interest of the people of the city, now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, that Section 1, all votes needed to pass any action by any commission, board, or other sub-entity of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, shall be by a majority vote of the whole number of the members of the commission, board, or sub-entity unless otherwise required by state or federal law. Section 2, repeal clause, all ordinances, resolutions, and parts thereof in conflict herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such conflict.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance number 2263 on its first reading.
Second.
Voice vote again. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Oh, aye for me too. All opposed? Okay. Ms. Snyder?
I make a motion that we read the ordinance 2263 on its second reading for passage
By title only?
by title only.
Oh, I remembered that. Do I get a second?
You're suspending the
Second.
rules.
And suspending the rules to do so.
In second? Ms. Kendricks gets second, I guess. That's a voice too? No? Okay. Roll call.
Get it? Mr. Thomas?
No?
Mr. McClung?
Yes.
Ms. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Ms. Kendrick?
Yes.
4-1. Ordinance 2263, an ordinance clarifying majority vote as to all commissions, boards, and other sub-entities of the city of Eureka Springs.
There's no rush.
Vote to approve.
We need a vote to approve. We need a motion to approve.
Yeah, motion, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2263 on its second reading.
Second.
This is a voice vote, so all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Mr. Thomas, what's your vote?
Oh, I voted aye.
Thank you.
So we finished that topic.
Now is when I'm saying there's no rush.
Topic number 3 was discussion of the food trucks. Ms. Snyder, I believe.
I would like to temporarily postpone that to the future, but I have a question for the city attorney first.
Okay.
Mr. Taney, since this is seconded by Peg Adamson, who will be resigning at the end of this year, does it matter that she is who seconded when this comes up next year?
No.
Okay. Then I would like to temporarily postpone this until future notice. I'm not going to say right now when that will be because I'm not sure.
And
I have another question for the city attorney. Are we required to award these food truck franchises, or whatever you might call them, at a particular period of time?
we already did.
Wherever
Yes,
it is.
they're required by the ordinance to be done in the fall. And then they're to be redone if they're empty throughout the year.
So are we violating the law by not proceeding with the approval of the food truck?
They approved the food trucks.
Oh, they did?
Yeah,
I'm
this
sorry,
is
I
totally different.
misunderstood.
This
Yeah.
is a different discussion.
Oh, okay. Thank you,
Now,
Mr. Attorney.
If we have remaining open ones and someone applies, and you don't vote on, then we'd have
that
problems.
must have been wrong.
And did you not say earlier that we're supposed to vote on her? Because do we have to vote since the agenda was already set and Ms. Snyder has pulled this?
You need to vote it to remove it.
And that's a voice vote?
Did we get a second on her?
Yeah.
Not yet.
I
Second?
thought, I thought,
Ms. Kendrick did.
All in favor of postponing item number 3, discussion of food truck situation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We had tabled discussion of discontinuing showing the video on YouTube. It was item number 4. We're down to what was item number 6, city attorney discussion of new council member selection process. Need a motion to discuss?
So moved.
second, do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was my topic, and the mayor picked it up for me and asked to have it put on. I would like to ask at this time that the city attorney take this opportunity to discuss the potential of a new council member needing to be selected as of January 1, 2018 in the replacement of Ward 2, Peg Adamson. And I would appreciate that he cover the process from applying through what needs to be done to fill that position, so that the public is aware that we will at this time potentially have an opening as of January 1, 2018. And this would be the process to follow to fill that position, which potentially could be Ward 2, Peg Adamson's old position. Yes, yes, ma'am.
And may I ask that before the city attorney addresses this issue, that we make it clear that what has happened so far is Ms. Adamson has submitted a resignation effective January 1st, 2018. Is that not correct?
That's why I called it potential, yes, ma'am.
It's a potential because that date has not yet
The 31st.
Yes, ma'am.
It's the 31st, not the
but it
1st.
has been submitted.
The
I want to make
The same thing.
make it clear as to what the facts are.
I understand.
Thank you.
I think we're clear now. Yes, yes.
She could conceivably retract that.
Based on what I'm hearing, that was correct. That's why we've tried to use the word potential and be real careful with the process so that the public will understand the process. And unless there's any more questions, I'd like the city attorney to give us the process for potentially filling that position as of January 1, 2018.
At this point, should there become a vacancy for any reason, that vacancy would have to be declared by the council according to the statute that the state prescribes, and then it is to be filled by the remaining members of the council. It would be by a majority vote of those members remaining.
Okay.
So we would have a council of 5, assuming only one member was to disappear. We're not making this specific to Ms. Adamson at all, but if at any point we lose an or 2, if we lose 3, we cannot fill the positions. The statute clearly says that it cannot be filled by a number less than the quorum of the whole. But it can be filled by a vote of 5. Would require 3 votes in favor of the individual to be placed into the open seat.
Okay.
The way the council has done this at the previous time was to declare the seat empty, and then at the next meeting after that, I believe, took a full vote. In this instance, the mayor or the city council, and I think in the last instance, the mayor foregone to the city council to let you declare your vacancy rather than him take it upon himself to declare the vacancy. So you would declare a vacancy. You would need your candidates. The law does not prescribe whether the candidates are voted on individually or whether they're voted on en masse, and then you take the top 2. Some of the discussion that I've heard in Little Rock is that you probably should vote en masse and then take the top 2 candidates and then vote those top 2 if there are more than 2 candidates originally. And no one receives 3 votes in the first go-round.
Okay.
It should be a fairly straightforward process. The mayor does not get a vote in any instance, and he does not, or she, if it was later on after we've got a different mayor, would not have a veto.
Okay.
It only goes to the 5 members that remain of the council.
So, to clarify a little further for the public who may have an interest that reside in Ward 2, should that be the position that the council declares, the potential interested parties then notify the city clerk to be added to this list, to be put on this ballot, I would assume. Is that correct?
There is nothing in state law that says specifically they notify the clerk, but I would assume that someone needs to assemble the list, and if council defers to that individual being the clerk, that certainly is a viable way of doing it. If, I suppose, when you get here and you're getting ready to take your vote and you find that one of the council members believes someone's been lifted off that list, I wouldn't foreclose that council member from being able to add that person to the list, though.
Okay.
Because there's nothing that clearly says that I read that the council doesn't have that ability.
Okay, so the persons that are interested, then they obviously would have to reside in the ward where the vacancy is declared.
Absolutely.
And then they notify, and if council chooses, it's the city clerk, which is fine. There's just notifying them by name, and that they actually, the only thing requirement is that they be in that ward of the vacated position.
They need to be able to show that they're an elector in that ward.
That's right, elector in that ward. Okay. And so they don't have to do an application or nothing, they just do a notification.
There's never been an application that the council's required before.
Okay.
If you want to change it and make it your procedure, I assume you could do that. But generally speaking, I think it's always been done without.
Okay. I think that pretty well clears. Yes, Ms. Snyder.
Did I miss it? Okay, they don't have to do an application. Do they have to do the signatures?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. I wasn't sure. Okay, so basically what you're saying is our first meeting in January will be Monday the 8th. That's when we declare the vacancy. And so they would be coming before us 2 weeks later on the 22nd.
21st, wouldn't it?
22nd, Monday.
22nd? Okay.
I believe that's the way it was done last time. I think by the way it is actually written, the mayor could declare the vacancy and you could just confirm it.
Well,
but it probably would still be best to go what you're saying.
I'll say, didn't you just say that he was leaving it to council?
He did last time.
Okay, so we would declare on the 8th and vote on the 22nd.
That would be my reading of the statute.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Kendricks, ma'am.
I think it would also be appropriate for potential candidate to make application to the mayor. So I think that if application is received by either the mayor or the city clerk or even the receptionist in City Hall, I think any of those methods would be appropriate. I don't think that you should limit the candidacy to those that have applied only through the clerk.
But the process we've used in the past was not that, so that would require us to change our process.
I beg to differ because I believe I addressed my application either to the mayor or to the city council as a whole.
But other applicants...
Not to the clerk.
But the other applicants didn't.
Oh, well, I was appointed.
He had two.
I just caution the council not to be choosy about how the applications come in.
I need to have that clarified by the city attorney, please.
Well, as I said a moment ago, I don't think that a council member will be precluded from putting a name forward if everyone gets to the table. And you find that someone has, for whatever reason, been inadvertently left off the list who wishes. I don't know that there's any requirement that you use the mayor also, but surely if someone wants the position, they can make it known to at least one member of the council. If they don't wish to express it to the clerk, although the clerk has been the one that has always tried to organize the vote and therefore create a ballot if there's going to be a ballot system.
So in other words, they could also then, if I'm reading what you're saying correctly, they could also make it known to the mayor's administrative assistant also, or not?
If you don't mind, I suppose that's fine. The reason I would limit it somewhat rather than make it is because if you leave it too broad, someone is apt to say, well, I notified X and they forgot to put me in the basket. So if you keep it to the city council or at least to the elected officials, you have the ability for the voting public to take their vengeance, I suppose, if someone got left out. Where if it was the mayor's assistant, the only person that could take that vengeance would be the mayor. And not that I proposing vengeance upon anyone, but if you spread it too wide, you do have the possibility of somebody saying, I contacted certain person, they didn't do it. And
So at the first meeting in January, do we need to make that part of the process then when we declare the vacancy of how we want the process done?
I think at that time you could pick who you want notified, or whom of the various number you want notified.
Okay, so not only declare the vacancy, but declare some rules for the process. Okay, Mr. McClung.
Yeah, I think it would be prudent on our part to declare the vacancy the first meeting, and anyone that wants that position, since there's no specific way at this time to apply, that they should attend the second meeting in January and introduce themselves that they want to be, and then we take the vote the first one in February. I mean, I think we need to have the opportunity to hear them speak, you know, and at least show enough interest to show up to a meeting and say that they want to be a participant. You know, that's,
so
if they're not willing to do that, you know, well,
I think you may have a problem with doing 3 meetings, because the statute appears to say at the following meeting after the declaring of the vacancy.
well, then you may have somebody that shows up right there at the very last minute you know nothing about. I mean, that's to their disadvantage, I suppose. But you know, how do you get to qualify anybody?
Maybe when you have the first meeting and declare the vacancy, if you establish the process, and maybe what Ms. Kendrick said would apply, and somehow the person that's collecting these names could let the council know the names of the potential people on the ballot.
But he said he don't even really have to submit anything.
Well, it could be a last-minute person, yes. Then that would be, as you said, probably to their disadvantage. Ms. Kendricks?
As a practical matter, maybe we ought to discuss when we are possibly going to have enough people present, because I know that you are planning on being absent in some council meetings early in the year, and I would hate to see us go without a full council for a month and a half or 2 months. So I would like to fill the vacancy as quickly as possible. So I think we should maybe consider when we are going to have people here to vote on it.
I will not be here at the second meeting in January.
And I believe, when are you going to be?
Unless Korean Air goes down in the motion or something, I should barely be back, yes. Barely, I mean, jet lagged, but I'm pretty sure I'll make the second meeting, but that's still only 4 of us, and I don't know how that would affect a vote.
But
I need to ask the attorney.
The city council, or the city attorney and I discussed this earlier, it's possible for us to fill it in the same meeting that we declare the vacancy. And I believe, at least we know that all of us will be here at this point in time. I think if we let everybody know what is going on factually, they can plan on being present at that meeting. My suggestion.
I know we can't make a motion to do the process now because the vacancy has not been declared until January 1st, 12:01 a.m. on 2018.
But
so obviously this whole discussion.
I think we can warn potential candidates to be prepared to let everyone know prior to that meeting whether they are, or if they are interested.
Okay. It's a good discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Finally. You never look this way anymore.
There's a reason.
For clarification, it was already announced. People know. They have to know. They will be knowing. And the biggest clarification is, this is a little town. No matter who you turn your application into, It goes to the mayor when it deals with city council. That's just a given. It doesn't have to be a law or a rule. It pretty much happens. But if you're really worried, fill out 3. One for the city clerk, one for the mayor's assistant, one for the mayor. Those are the 3 who need to know.
Ms. Snyder, interruption. There's no application for this.
I'm saying, a little thing saying, I want to
I'm
run.
confused. Okay.
Putting a name on there. Put your name on a piece of paper and put it in each councilman's box. Either way, it's going to get to the people who need to know. The other thing is, we do fine with 5 people. I don't see that we have to rush into this. If we're going to be missing people at the second meeting, so we make it for the first meeting in February, it's not that big of a deal. It's better to take your time and work things out and talk with the people and let them get used to what's going on, get them up to date, and do it right rather than rush through. So the first meeting in February would be just as good as the second meeting in January. It's not that hard to do.
Yes, Ms. Kendricks.
By when do we have to approve a budget?
We could do that with 5. We don't need 6.
The end of
But as I
January.
understand it, we're going to be missing...
Before the
someone.
1st of February.
I'm sorry?
Before the 1st of February.
So
January 31st.
Last day of January.
So we have one meeting in which to
We'll have
budget.
a workshop, and then we'll have one meeting, yes, ma'am, officially.
I hope we don't
Well,
go to a second meeting.
We have a second meeting on January 22nd.
But we will not have...
We'll have 4 people,
Then we can call an emergency meeting.
if we had to. Yes, thank you. That's
I guess if not having a full council, I find it more important to have a full council.
I don't believe there's any resolution to this issue. I think it was just a free-form discussion about the potential of a vacancy being declared at the first meeting of the council on January the 8th of 2018. But for the public's view out there and for any potential interested candidates that would be a resident of Ward 2 and also be on the voter registration rolls. Those are the 2 requirements. So should you have any interest and you have listened to us have this discussion here, it would behoove you to be available and to have notified an elected official.
I'm notifying you all now. I'm in Ward 2. Can we move on, please?
Pardon the interruption. A council member or the city clerk of your availability. Are we ready to move on? No, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
The budget's been brought up. I thought we had agreed we were going to pass that early for a change at the first meeting. Instead of rushing at the end of January like we always seem to do.
That's the next agenda topic. You want to hang on?
Okay.
Event on Saturday is number 7.
The budget workshop?
Saturday is first and then budget.
First, didn't I have it first?
Discussion of the event on Saturday.
Oh, it was first. You're right. Okay. Moving on to the event on Saturday night, discussion. I think Ms. Snyder brought it up. Can I have a motion to discuss?
So moved.
Need a second?
I second it.
Need a second. With that, Ms. Snyder, floor is yours.
I was there from like 1:30 in the afternoon until rather late at night. I didn't stay until 10. I couldn't anymore. I can see that this could have a future. I can also see that the way it was put together sucked. The biggest thing, and the response I have gotten from like 95% of the various merchants, downtown especially, but all over town, was the fact that they were kept out of the loop. Most of the people that were down there were locals. There were very few outsiders, and most of those looked like they were the ones that they were here anyway for that weekend, that they didn't come for this event, but it was there, so they were doing it. I did talk with Jamie and Jackie Wolven, and got different stories from them, from her, that I did from all of the merchants that I had talked to. And so I asked her if she could give me her contact list of the merchants and or shops that were notified, like in September or whenever, of this event, not with the email or mailing addresses, because I know that's illegal. I didn't want that. I just wanted names, because every merchant I talked to, and that was almost every shop downtown, they didn't know until like November. There were very few that knew ahead of time. So what I would like to do is, I suppose we could set up a workshop sometime next year, but basically what we need is, I don't know if we would need an ordinance or just a guideline or something in regards to how a special event that's going to last for more than 2 hours, and if it includes either closing down the street and or taking away parking spaces, there should be definite guidelines so that all merchants, which means anybody who deals with tourism, that can be a shopkeeper, an artist, a woodworker, it doesn't matter. If you deal with tourism, you're what I'm calling a merchant, a retailer, whatever. You deal with those people, you're the ones who keep our city going. They should be involved from day one. They should have a say in it. There should be public comments or public meetings. There should be all kinds of stuff. It shouldn't be down to 2 or 3 people deciding for the city what's going to be best. This could have done properly. This could have been a really awesome event, but not the way it was. And because there was no outside help, because of the way it was, it sorely lacked. There was no 1,000 people or even 500 for that matter. Anyway, if you would be interested in doing a workshop to come up with guidelines, fine. If you want just an ordinance, I've worked out that too. But the people who deal with tourism in this town and the city council have got to be involved in the process when it's going to do something like closing a street or taking away parking. There's just no way to get around it. You can't. They closed, okay, because I kept getting different times. I think the last set of times I got was from 4 to 10, maybe it was 5 to 10. But I got downtown to Basin Park at 1:30, and the street already had the barricade. Now, Jack Moore tried telling me the street wasn't closed, but the barrier was huge. The sign was about this big, street closed. And I was doing through traffic, so I don't know what country he was in. But that was at 1:30, through traffic only. I got some really interesting pictures of the trolley trying to get through with that barricade up and the people walking around in the street. I got pictures of the loose wires that, you know, these kind of things, only the big fat ones that were supposed to be across the sidewalk, they were taped down. But if you were stepping off the curb onto the street, there was all these loose electrical wires that you could have caught your foot in, done a header, and guess who's going to get sued? Not the vendor, not the shop, it's going to be the city. They had this huge grill thing that at first when they lit it I thought it was charcoal, but it was, I guess, wood with flames like this high in the middle of the street for people to stay warm. We had, I don't know if you guys saw, I saw you going up when I was coming down the one time. They had a tent in the middle of the handicap parking spot. Did you see that? The very last tent was right in the middle of the handicap parking spot, which is illegal without a state permit. And even though it was closed to traffic, it still had through traffic in regards to this, that, and the other. We have very few handicap spots. And they took like, this should have been allowed for use by a handicapper. There were so many little things that could be dealt with. But when you got to the New Orleans Hotel, that little curve right there, that was it. Everything else, and I got pictures of that too, going up, and then the next block all the way to Mountain, because it was shut down from Mountain going down to Center and Spring, you couldn't do anything on those other 2 streets going up because there were no vendors up there. So they stopped at the corner by New Orleans. That was 2 blocks of our shops that were virtually shut down for the rest of the day, well, starting definitely by 5, because people weren't going up there. They were going to the corner and then they were stopping. Had they put vendors all the way up, since they had to stop traffic at Mountain, this would have helped those shops. And I know you guys saw it, how dark it was. There was, a few things trying to hang in it. They did terrible. One of the shops were like 70% down. This could be awesome, done right. But it can't be done right if only 2 or 3 people are in charge and there's no input allowed from the people or the council or anything else. This has got to be open to the community. That's all there is to it. So like I said, it's up to you guys if we do a workshop or an ordinance or whatever. I'll leave that to you guys, but I've got lots of information and pictures if anybody needs any.
Thank you for your assessment, Ms. Snyder. Ms. Kendricks?
Ms. Schneider is asking the council, who is a legislative body, to get involved in the executive branch of the city government, which is the mayor's office. If Ms. Schneider would like to run for mayor and take control of these things, then she's more than welcome to do so. In absence of that, then this council, as a legislative body, one who makes laws, and not as a executive or administrative body or someone who regulates our streets. We should stay out of this.
As an addendum to that, we've discussed this at a prior meeting at some point, and the attorney was very clearly asked about the role of the mayor as the quasi-administrator of the city, and it is under the mayor's purview and has been for street closure. Now, the issue before us is that an event took place in which the mayor issued the permit to put the event on, and it included the street closure. I believe there has been great analysis of what happened, and there's a gentleman sitting here tonight that has posted that in a couple places, Facebook and other places, and he did a pretty good analysis of that in the emails. And he pretty well showed that the mayor received some exceedingly lacking information that might have misled him in some ways. And that didn't help the situation. Where I'm going with this is that I, for one, would hate to see the council start involving themselves in what I consider to be civic organizations of the city, like the Main Street organization, and attempting to oversee them. I think the merchants, and as Mickey mentioned, that's all merchants and people that are involved in tourism within the city, that then possible should become very involved in that organization that approached the mayor, and become involved very early in the process of January, so that things that take place where there's going to be festivals and everything, that they can have an active voice in. Therefore, they don't have to become reactive. They can become proactive. I'm glad to hear that the merchants, and I was glad to see, because I went downtown and walked around, I thoroughly enjoyed the ambience of town. I enjoyed the window displays. I enjoyed being able to walk back and forth across the street. I enjoyed being able to see people and talk with them. I found the spirit of the event to be very nice. I don't know whether the merchants were doing good or not. It's the first time it's been done. The feedback I got from talking to individuals was they loved the atmosphere and the feeling of what was going on, and they would like to see more than just something at Christmas. What that will be, I don't have a clue. But I think a lot of it rests with the Main Street and or some civic organizations that represent the tourism industry and those that input into the tourism industry in the town. And so I, for one, would challenge the public, the merchants, the hoteliers, the restaurant people, etc., to become involved up front, proactively in the organization, and not wait until all of a sudden you get surprised. And I understand why you got surprised, trust me, I really do. And then you become reactive, and you become angry about it, and you have every right to be. But please, in 2018, take the time and the effort to become involved and help direct what is going on by the civic organizations in this town, so that you can be a positive voice and will be heard. And Ms. Snyder's hand is up.
This is a little postcard size thing that was given to various merchants to put out. And on the second side it says shops open later, and it lists a whole pile. Not every shop was contacted, not every shop was asked, not every shop got one. This is what I'm talking about, secrecy. That was the #1 complaint out of everything, secrecy. And if we make this an ordinance, that there are certain guidelines that must be met, then we're doing our council job. We're making it a legal thing. I'm not saying we have to have an ordinance. I'm saying we could if that's what it's going to take. But in regards to permits and licenses to do stuff and all that, we could set it up so there are guidelines on there. And that means all business license holders will be notified of events by email. Doesn't have to spend money, you know, with stamps, envelopes, and all. I don't believe in any of that. Everyone that gets a license has an email. Just send out an email. We're talking like 2-3 months before an event, so they have plenty of time. Part of the problem in the vast majority of the merchants not knowing what was going on until really late was because the Main Street Downtown Network, whatever they're calling themselves now, did not tell them until they had to. This is why I have asked Jackie for her list, because she says everybody was notified. There's no way that I had that many people say they were not notified who were. So that's why I've asked for the list of names, which she said she would get to me. So like I said, whether we are setting up guidelines, doing a workshop, so that we can let these places know you've got to involve them, or you're smart if you involve them, it doesn't matter. It works either way. This is our city. Without the backing and the work and the effort of everybody and the non-secrecy, nothing will be done to help the city. And it was the secrecy that hurt so horrifically bad, and what had them the most angry. And yes, it, like I said before, it could have been a blast done properly.
And as a council person sitting here, I understand what you're saying, Ms. Snyder, but I don't feel, as Ms. Kendrick said, that that we should take what happened and the mishap part of it which happened and turn that into infringing upon the executive authority of the mayor as the administrator of the city. And I think we should encourage all of the merchants and the citizens to become actively involved in the process in a proactive manner versus a reactive. But then again, they really became reactive because they weren't informed. I got it. I absolutely do. It was a misstep. It was a mistake. It happened. I highly question that we need to legislate, ordinance, or whatever, and become involved in civic organizations and their abilities to garner input as they appropriately should. If I understand what people are upset, I'm pretty sure that they have told the organizers of the Main Street and those particular people involved have pretty well heard
Probably.
the error of their ways. But I personally, sitting here, I have a problem what I would consider overreaching, overreacting into the civic responsibilities and the activities of the city. However, if council wants to bring it back next year at the next meetings or so and discuss it further, it'll absolutely be on the agenda for discussion, unless there's nothing. I'm sorry, Mr. McClung.
I just wanted to add that the mayor has already indicated that he's going to look at anything like this differently in the future and prepare some guidelines and handle it in a different way, and so I think we need to give him the benefit of the doubt and let him follow through with that, because I believe that he sees that there needs to be more clarification on everything. So
And follow up.
Sure.
And again, when you read the person who's sitting here's public comments, you'll realize there was some misinformation. So on that, if there's no more discussion, we'll move off that topic. No, we won't. Yes, we will. We'll move to next topic is setting the 2018 budget workshop. Motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
With that, we obviously need to get moving. There's a high question about who will be and who won't be around in January and at what times and how the vote's affected. So if nobody disagrees, I'd like to see about turning that over to the mayor's assistant to see if she can coordinate a time for this workshop and alleviate all of us from looking at our calendars.
We want to try and do it in the month of December.
If we have no...
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
If the only time in January that we have to pass the budget is the first meeting in January, I would strongly recommend that the council have a workshop this month to discuss.
Well, speaking of that, then maybe this would help. There is a request that the City Council workshop to review the ADA self-assessment transition plan previously scheduled for 12/19/17 at 3 p.m. at the auditorium has been postponed until after the first of the year. So that workshop has been postponed. That leaves that time open.
Perfect.
And I'm
Works
just
for
giving
me.
it. I'm just laying it out there.
Works for me.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
May I move that we set a workshop on the 19th at 3 o'clock to discuss the budget.
Second.
Is there any further discussion about that? Does
that work?
Does the mayor assistant need to give us any input on that?
It works for you.
Cool. Then I guess we'll go for, is that a voice vote? Are we ready to vote? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Do I have anything else? No, that's it. That's it. We're up to agenda setting, and the next meeting would be January the 8th, so this agenda would be for that meeting. Yes, ma'am.
I have an item.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like a discussion of whether guidelines for taking minutes and contents of minutes should be the province and approved by City Council, or whether the item for approval of the minutes on each agenda ought to be removed, since the City Clerk has indicated that the City Council has no say on the contents of the minutes.
I need a second. There's no second. That will not be added to the agenda. Is there something else to add? Actually, do we not need to go ahead and add the announcement of the vacancy at that meeting? Does that have to be an agenda topic?
That's the mayor's office, not us. I mean, the mayor puts that on there.
I thought we had to declare the vacancy. So
We can do it that evening.
There's no vacancy yet.
Well, that's true. So we can't add it to the agenda. We'll just add it that night. Okay, I see what you're saying.
There has not been a vacancy.
Now, got it, okay. Just check.
We could add approval of the budget.
Thank you.
That's all mayor's office stuff.
It's the end of January when the budget gets passed.
We couldn't do it at an earlier meeting,
Sure
It's the mayor's province to
so
present
there's no reason to not add it.
So Mayor's province to do what?
present it.
Present the budget?
Until he presents it, you have nothing to approve.
Okay.
He presented it last week, last meeting, didn't he?
Yes, that's right, he did.
He puts it on the agenda.
Is
Well-
that his final version?
Wait a minute.
Wait.
Let's have a discussion about that here just a second. It's a city council meeting, so now you're telling us it's the mayor
The mayor,
controls?
the mayor writes the budget and presents it. You
What, we
amend-
approve it.
You approve it, you amend it, you pass it. Has he give it to you to approve?
Yes, he's already handed it out.
Okay, if he has, then you can do it. But if he's not presented it to you, you're early.
No, we're not. We have had it. We've discussed
Yeah,
it.
he's
And that's where
presented
we
it.
came up with those two potential issues of the cemetery salary and the line item budget that Bobby Ray, the building inspector, wanted
Demo
for
run.
demolition.
That's why you have a workshop.
Yes, Ms. Snyder.
The mayor puts it on the agenda, just like he put the Norris St lease on there. He put the community center stuff on there. He did the city attorney's got on there. The mayor is the one who has it added to the agenda before the agenda goes out to us.
City attorney, is that an accurate statement?
If he is actually presented his version that he doesn't intend to make changes to, then you're ready to act. If he's still going to make changes to it after your workshop, you need to wait till he's presented to you with his final budget.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes, sir.
we would know after our December 19th workshop if we were ready to deal with it at the first meeting in January. We may be scheduling more workshops, so we could add it to the agenda at the start of the meeting.
That makes total sense. That's what we'll do then. So that won't be added to the agenda. Is there anything else for the agenda?
Won't be or will be?
Won't be at this time. Is that not what I
I
understand?
just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly.
Based on what Councilman Thomas said. So we're up to city council comments. Let's start with Mr. McClung.
Just want to wish everyone a very happy and Merry Christmas this December 25th and a great holiday season. Safe travels to everyone. God bless you all.
Ms. Kendricks, ma'am.
No comments.
Mr. Thomas.
Just Merry Christmas to everybody.
Ms. Snyder.
As weird as this meeting has been, I'll save that part. I'd like to put my Marine in your thoughts. He's within 2 miles of the San Diego fires and has been for several days now. It's getting scary and hairy. I don't like the pictures he's sending me. Other than that, Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy New Year. Safe, please.
And as a council person, I'll add nothing to the council comments, but I do have a very nice mayor's comment form printed out by a very efficient administrative assistant to the mayor that I must read. Events for coming up that we want to notify you of is on December the 16th, there's a community sing-along at 5 to 6:30 p.m. in Basin Park. 12/16, it's Home for the Holidays at 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium. All month long, we're having the Christmas tree forest until January the 1st, 2018 at the lawn of the Crescent. All month long, we're having the drive-through lights at 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Great Passion Play. And all month long, we have the lights of Eureka Springs until January the 2nd, 2018, in the Basin Park in the Springs. And at this time, I will ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Need a second? We are adjourned.
What about God?